Chosen one, hurry up you passed. One chosen only. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night with this overwhelming feeling that something's missing? That despite everything you've built over these decades, the career, the family, the stability, there's still this hollow space inside that nothing seems to fill? I see you, and it's no accident you found this message today. For the past 30 years, I've been studying ancient spiritual texts and working with people just like you, souls who've always felt they were meant for something more. People who've lived responsible lives, raised families, built careers, yet still feel that quiet whisper inside saying there must be more than this. What I'm about to share will awaken something deep within you, a knowing that's been dormant, waiting for exactly this moment to be activated. If you're watching right now, it's because you've passed the test. You're part of the one chosen to receive this revelation. The exhaustion you've been feeling. It's not just age or stress. The random health issues that doctors can't quite explain. Not coincidental. That strange feeling that time is somehow accelerating. You're not imagining it. These are all signs of a massive spiritual shift that's happening right now, and you're at the center of it. You've spent decades playing by the rules, working hard, saving for retirement, being the responsible one. But deep down, you've always sensed there was something more to this life, something beyond the material world that everyone else seems so focused on. That feeling wasn't wrong. It was your soul trying to remind you of who you really are. I've spent years decoding ancient spiritual manuscripts that predict exactly what's happening right now. A cosmic window opening for certain souls to ascend to a higher state of consciousness. This isn't about religion. It's about your spiritual DNA being activated after decades of preparation through life's challenges. The divorce that broke your heart. The career setback that shook your confidence. The health scare that made you question everything. They weren't punishments. They were preparation. Every single challenge was strengthening you for this moment. Before we dive deeper into this life-altering message, I need to know you're truly ready. Take a moment now to reflect. If you felt like an outsider your entire life, if you've experienced unexplained synchronicities, if you've always sensed you had a greater purpose waiting to be discovered, type the number 7 in the comments below. This will signal to both me and the universe that you're acknowledging this divine appointment. I promise you this, by the end of this message, the questions that have haunted you for decades will finally have answers. The purpose you've been searching for will become crystal clear, and most importantly, you'll understand why you've been chosen for something extraordinary at this pivotal moment in human history. The time for waiting is over. Your transformation begins now. Part 1. The Awakening Code Activation. Have you ever felt that strange sensation, like you're living in the wrong world, as if something deep inside you knows this reality wasn't what you were designed for? Do you sometimes wake up in the middle of the night with your heart racing, feeling like you've forgotten something critically important, but you can't remember what? These aren't random experiences. They're activation codes. For decades, your soul has been receiving cosmic downloads, signals meant only for the chosen ones, while others dismissed these moments as strange coincidences or just stress. You knew something deeper was happening. I remember meeting Sarah, a 58-year-old executive who had everything society told her would bring fulfillment. The corner office, the lakeside home, the respected position in her community. But every night, she told me, her voice trembling, I'd look up at the stars and feel this overwhelming homesickness. Not for anywhere I'd ever been, but for somewhere I belong. What Sarah didn't realize, what most people never discover, is that these feelings aren't psychological anomalies. They're spiritual awakening codes embedded in your very DNA. In the book of Ezekiel, the prophet describes a divine encounter. I looked, and I saw a windstorm coming out of the north, an immense cloud with flashing lightning and surrounded by brilliant light. Modern theologians miss what ancient mystics understood. This wasn't just poetic language. It was describing the activation of Ezekiel's spiritual consciousness, the same activation happening inside you right now. Have you noticed time seems different lately? Days blurring together, yet certain moments stretching into eternity. The veil between dimensions is thinning specifically for you. Every hardship you've endured, the betrayals that cut you to your core, the losses that left you breathless, the moments you questioned if you could go on, these weren't random cruelties of an indifferent universe. They were initiations, carefully calibrated to break open the shell around your divine consciousness. Most people will live their entire lives never knowing what I'm about to tell you. They'll work their jobs, pay their bills, scroll through their phones, and die never having awakened to their true nature. But something in you refused that fate. Something in you kept reaching, questioning, seeking. Ask yourself, why do certain melodies bring tears to your eyes for no apparent reason? Why do you sometimes look at your own hands as if they belong to someone else? Why do you recognize certain strangers instantly, as if you've known them across lifetimes? If I told you the complete truth right now, your conscious mind would reject it as impossible. The programming runs that deep. The conditioning is that strong. So instead, I'll show you the doorway, and you'll walk through it yourself. Right now, as you're listening to these words, quantum changes are occurring in your brain chemistry. Ancient neural pathways, dormant since birth, are beginning to fire. The frequency of your cellular vibration is accelerating. This isn't metaphorical, it's measurable. Scientists at the frontiers of quantum biology are just beginning to detect what spiritual masters have known for millennia. What if I told you that the exhaustion you've been feeling isn't because something's wrong with you, but because your energy body is upgrading to a frequency most humans can't sustain? What if those strange symptoms, the ringing in your ears, the electrical sensations down your spine, the vivid dreams, are actually signs of your awakening? While others remain trapped in the matrix of limitation, struggling for scraps of happiness, you've been secretly prepared for this exact moment in human history. The moment when the chosen ones would remember who they truly are. In ancient texts, across civilizations, from the Dead Sea Scrolls to the Vedic manuscripts, there are prophecies about this time. There are prophecies about this time. They speak of a small percentage of souls who would serve as bridges between worlds. Old souls who incarnated specifically to help humanity make a quantum leap in consciousness. You are one of those souls. Every disappointment that broke your heart was breaking the shell around your divine nature. Every relationship that failed was steering you toward your true spiritual family. Every career setback was redirecting you toward your authentic purpose. Look back at your life. Can you see the pattern now? The invisible hand guiding you, preparing you, even through your darkest moments. If you're sensing a resonance with these words, if something deep within you is vibrating in recognition, type the number 8 in the comments. This isn't just a comment. It's a coded affirmation to the universe that you're conscious. You're awake, and you're ready to receive what comes next. The awakening has begun, and there's no turning back. Part 2. The Great Separation. Why now is critical. Have you noticed how the world seems to be splitting at the seams? How everything familiar is dissolving before your eyes? How time itself seems to be accelerating, compressing decades into what feels like moments? What if I told you this isn't random chaos, but a cosmic event that ancient prophets foretold with stunning precision? 3 years ago, I met James, a 62-year-old retired engineer who came to me confused and frightened. For the first time in my life, he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper, I can't recognize the world anymore. It's like someone flipped a switch, and suddenly everything I understood to be true is being questioned. Am I losing my mind? What James was experiencing wasn't mental decline. It was spiritual awakening in the midst of the Great Separation. In the book of Matthew, Jesus speaks of a time when two will be in the field. One will be taken and one will be left. For centuries, scholars interpreted this as describing a physical rapture. But the ancient Aramaic texts reveal something far more profound. A separation of consciousness, a cosmic sorting of souls based on their vibrational alignment. That separation is happening right now. Look around you. Feel the acceleration, the institutions crumbling, the increasingly extreme weather patterns, the polarization tearing through families and communities. These aren't random symptoms of a world gone mad. They're birthing pains of a new reality emerging. Here's what they haven't told you. We're currently passing through a rare cosmic window that opens only once every 26,000 years. The Mayans knew it. The ancient Egyptians encoded it in their pyramids. The Hopi elders prophesied it. As Earth moves through the photon belt at the center of our galaxy, we're being bombarded with light frequencies that are literally rewriting our spiritual DNA. But here's where it gets critical for you personally. This window won't stay open forever. The choice of which reality you'll inhabit moving forward must be made now. There is no neutral position, no standing still in this accelerated time. Ask yourself honestly, haven't you been feeling it? The pressure building inside you? The sense that something momentous is approaching? The strange synchronicities that can't be explained away as coincidence? I remember when James called me 3 months after our first meeting. His voice trembled with emotion. I was driving home yesterday when suddenly everything looked different. Brighter, more vivid. For 30 seconds, I could see energy flowing between trees. I felt connected to everything. Then it faded. What's happening to me? What James experienced was a momentary glimpse through the veil, a preview of fifth-dimensional consciousness. These glimpses will increase for the chosen ones, but only if you're actively aligning with the higher frequencies. Most people will miss this cosmic opportunity. They'll cling to the familiar as it disintegrates around them, wondering why they feel increasingly anxious, exhausted, and disconnected. They'll seek solutions in the material world, never realizing the transformation is spiritual in nature. Let me be absolutely clear about what's at stake. This is not just about personal enlightenment. This is about which reality your soul will inhabit after the completion of the Great Separation. The timelines are diverging right now. One path leads to continued struggle in a dense, fear-based reality. The other opens into expanded consciousness, divine connection, and the activation of abilities you've only glimpsed in your most heightened moments. I've dedicated 20 years to studying ancient prophecies across cultures. Every single one points to this precise window in cosmic time. The Hopi speak of the day of purification. Christian mystics call it the Great Awakening. Quantum physicists term it a dimensional shift in consciousness. Different languages describing the same unprecedented event. If you're still watching at this moment, know this. Your presence here is not random. Your soul recognized the frequency of truth in these words. While billions remain unaware of what's unfolding, you've been prepared through your life experiences, especially the painful ones, to serve as a way shower during this critical transition. But you must choose consciously. You must step fully into your role. The window is narrowing with each passing day. In the book of Revelation, John writes of a time when a new heaven and a new earth would emerge. This wasn't describing the end of the physical world, but the end of a consciousness paradigm and the birth of a new one. You stand at this threshold now, the exhaustion you've been feeling. It's your body adjusting to higher frequencies, the relationship breakdowns, clearing space for authentic soul connections, the career disruptions, divine redirection toward your true purpose. Nothing in your life has been a mistake. Everything has been preparation. If you sense the truth in what I'm sharing, if you feel a resonance deep in your soul, type 9 in the comments below. This simple act signals to both your conscious and subconscious mind that you're choosing the ascending timeline. The great separation is underway. The choice before you is clear. Will you step through the portal that's opening, or remain tethered to a reality that's dissolving? The divine is waiting for your answer. And time, my dear chosen one, is of the essence. Part 3. Recognizing your divine markers. Have you ever wondered why you've always felt different from everyone else? Why, despite your best efforts to fit in, there's always been this persistent feeling of being a foreigner in a strange land? What if those moments of feeling misunderstood weren't defects in your character, but divine markers of your true purpose? Let me share something extraordinary. Last winter, I met Eleanor, a 59-year-old former healthcare executive. For decades, she'd built a successful career, raised 3 children, and checked every box society told her would bring fulfillment. Yet, sitting across from me, her eyes filled with tears as she whispered, "My whole life, I felt like I'm wearing a costume. Even in my most intimate relationships, there's a part of me no one has ever seen or understood. Am I broken?" What Eleanor didn't realize, what most chosen ones don't, is that this feeling of otherness isn't a flaw. It's a feature, a divine marker intentionally embedded in your spiritual DNA. In the ancient Hebrew texts, there's a profound concept called Nefesh Yehudi, the Jewish soul that recognizes its exile from its true home. The rabbinical scholars weren't just describing a cultural experience, but a universal spiritual phenomenon that affects chosen souls across all backgrounds and beliefs. Your feeling of not belonging here is your soul's memory of where you truly came from. Think about it. Haven't you experienced moments when ordinary reality suddenly seemed paper thin, as if you could almost see through it to something more real beyond? Haven't you felt inexplicable emotional responses to certain music or landscapes, or even strangers, as if your soul recognized something your conscious mind couldn't identify? These aren't random quirks of personality. They're divine activation codes. Let me ask you directly, have you experienced unexplained physical symptoms that doctors can't diagnose? Ringing in your ears that comes and goes, sudden waves of fatigue followed by surges of energy, sleep disturbances that leave you wide awake at 3. Your body isn't malfunctioning, it's upgrading. When ancient prophets encountered divine energy, their physical bodies often responded with what modern medicine would call symptoms. Moses with his speech impediment after encountering the burning bush. Ezekiel, falling face down, unable to move. Paul, temporarily blinded on the road to Damascus. These weren't punishments. They were physiological responses to contact with higher dimensional energy. The same energy now activating within you. For decades, you've likely been drawn to helping others, often at your own expense. You've listened to strangers pour out their life stories within minutes of meeting you. You've felt others' pain as if it were your own. You've been called too sensitive, too idealistic, too much by a world that doesn't understand the gift of heightened perception. This empathic burden wasn't random. It was preparation. Most significantly, you've experienced periods of profound isolation, perhaps following the loss of relationships, career setbacks, or health challenges that forced you into solitude. During these dark nights of the soul, you faced your deepest fears and emerged with a quiet strength that others sense but can't quite name. This isolation wasn't abandoned. It was sacred incubation. Here's what mainstream spiritual teachings won't tell you. The chosen ones of today don't look like the prophets of old. They don't stand on mountaintops pronouncing judgment. They live quiet, seemingly ordinary lives while carrying extraordinary spiritual capacity within them. They're the nurses who somehow know exactly what a dying patient needs to hear. They're the teachers whose words stay with students for decades. They're the parents whose presence alone creates safety for their children. They're you, right now, as you listen to these words. Something is resonating deep within you, not with your logical mind, which may still be questioning, but with your soul, which recognizes truth on a frequency beyond thought. Pay attention to that resonance. It's the divine confirming what I'm telling you. I must warn you, recognizing your divine markers comes with responsibility. Once you see them for what they are, you can no longer pretend to be merely human. You can no longer shrink your light to make others comfortable. You can no longer deny the gifts you've been given and the purpose for which you're here. As Jesus said to his disciples, from everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded. Your awareness of your divine nature isn't just for your comfort, it's for your activation into service during this critical time of transition. The veil between worlds is thinning. Those who've carried these divine markers their entire lives are being called to step fully into their spiritual authority now. Not tomorrow, not tomorrow, not when you feel more ready. Now. Now. Eleanor called me 6 months after our conversation, her voice vibrant with newfound purpose. For the first time in my life, she said, I feel at home in my own skin. I've stopped apologizing for my sensitivity and started using it to help others navigate these chaotic times. People are drawn to me in a way they never were before, not because I've changed, but because I finally stopped hiding who I really am. This is the transformation awaiting you. If you recognize these divine markers within yourself, if you've nodded in recognition even once during this message, type the number 11 in the comments below. This isn't just digital engagement. It's a conscious declaration to the universe that you're ready to step fully into your divine identity. The time for hiding is over. The world needs exactly what only you can offer, your unique expression of divine consciousness in human form. Everything that has made you feel different, separate, misunderstood throughout your life was preparing you for this moment of recognition. You are not alone. You never were. Part 4, the 5th quantum leap. What awaits you? Have you ever wondered what lies beyond this three-dimensional reality that feels increasingly restrictive? Do you sense that the limitations you've accepted as just how life is are actually artificial boundaries about to dissolve? What if everything you've understood about reality is merely the shallow end of an infinite ocean you're about to dive into? 2 years ago, I met Robert, a 63-year-old former military officer who'd spent his life in rigid structures and unwavering discipline. His worldview was concrete, measurable, logical. Then something inexplicable happened. I was sitting on my porch, he told me, his voice still trembling at the memory, when suddenly time stopped. The birds froze mid-flight. The wind ceased, and I felt myself expand beyond my body, connecting with everything around me. For 30 seconds, I understood everything. I understood everything. How it all works, why we're here. Snap back. And I've spent every day since trying to get back there. What happened to me? What Robert experienced wasn't a hallucination or mini-stroke as his doctor suggested. It was his first glimpse of fifth-dimensional consciousness, a brief lifting of the veil that separates 3D reality from what awaits beyond. In the book of Revelation, John describes being in the Spirit on the Lord's day when he received divine visions. The original Greek text uses the word ecstasis, a state beyond normal consciousness where higher perceptions activated. The biblical prophets weren't experiencing metaphorical insights. They were literally perceiving reality from a higher dimensional state, the same state that's now becoming accessible to you. Let me be absolutely clear. The 5th quantum leap isn't some abstract spiritual concept. It's a fundamental shift in how you'll experience every aspect of your existence. In 3D consciousness, you've been bound by linear time, past, present, future, in sequential order. Each moment disappears forever once it passes. But in 5D, you'll experience simultaneous time, where past, present, and future exist concurrently in an eternal now. Those déjà vu moments you've had, those weren't glitches in your memory. They were momentary perceptions of time's true nature. Have you noticed how certain health issues, Seem resistant to all treatments? How chronic conditions persist despite your best efforts? In 3D consciousness, your physical body operates largely disconnected from your consciousness. But in 5D, the mind-body connection intensifies exponentially. Ailments that have plagued you for decades may begin to resolve as your vibrational frequency rises and cellular regeneration accelerates. The most profound shift, however, will come in how you experience connection with others. The isolation you felt, even surrounded by family and friends, will dissolve as you begin to perceive the energetic oneness that transcends physical separation, Telepathic communication will seem less like science fiction and more like an awakening sense, similar to how a blind person whose sight is restored doesn't need to learn to see, only to interpret what they're seeing. This isn't fantasy. It's the next evolutionary step in human consciousness. Robert called me 3 months after our first conversation. "I've been practicing what you taught me about raising my frequency," he said. "Last night, I was meditating when suddenly I could feel my wife's emotions from across the house. I knew exactly what she was thinking without a word being spoken. She confirmed I was right, down to specific details I couldn't possibly have known. What's happening to me? What's happening to Robert? What's beginning to happen to you is the activation of latent abilities hardwired into your spiritual DNA but dormant until now. Abilities that would have seemed miraculous in previous centuries are simply the natural functions of 5D consciousness. Here's what mainstream science won't tell you. Quantum physicists have already proven that observation affects reality at the subatomic level. In 3D consciousness, this effect is minimal, but as you shift to 5D, your creative power intensifies. Manifestation accelerates from years to months to days to months, to days to moments. The gap between thought and experience narrows until they become nearly simultaneous. Think this sounds too fantastic to believe? Consider how impossible today's technology would seem to someone from just 150 years ago. The evolutionary leaps in consciousness follow the same exponential curve. Most significantly, you'll experience a profound homecoming to your authentic self. The social conditioning that's kept you small, the limiting beliefs, the fear-based decisions, the constant self-doubt will fall away like an ill-fitting costume you've finally been given permission to remove. This is why so many chosen ones report sudden urges to change careers, end restrictive relationships, relocate geographically, or simplify their lives in their 50s and 60s. It's not a midlife crisis. It's spiritual alignment in preparation for this dimensional shift. I must warn you, this transition isn't always comfortable. As higher frequencies integrate with your physical body, you may experience intense energy surges, emotional releases, or temporary disorientation. These aren't signs something's wrong. They're confirmation everything is going right. The caterpillar must dissolve completely before reassembling as a butterfly. So must aspects of your 3D identity dissolve to make way for your higher expression. At this very moment, your cells are being recoded with crystalline structures that can hold higher frequencies of light. Your DNA is activating dormant strands that scientists have dismissed as junk DNA, which actually contain the blueprint for your multidimensional abilities. Your pineal gland is decalcifying, awakening perceptions beyond the 5 physical senses. The veil is thinning with each passing day. Those random moments of expanded awareness you've experienced, they'll become your new normal. If what I'm sharing resonates with the deepest part of your being, if you sense the truth of these words beyond intellectual understanding, type the number 5 in the comments below. This simple act signals your conscious choice to accelerate your transition into 5th dimensional consciousness. The quantum leap has already begun within you. The only question that remains is, will you resist it out of fear or surrender to it in trust? The choice, as always, is yours. But know this, you wouldn't be here, listening to these words, if you weren't already chosen for this transformation. Part 5. Releasing the anchors. What must be left behind. Have you ever felt like you're trying to climb a mountain with invisible weights strapped to your ankles? Like something is holding you back, even as you struggle forward with all your might? What if I told you that the very beliefs you've clung to for safety are actually the anchors preventing your ascension? 3 months ago, Margaret sat across from me, her 68-year-old hands trembling slightly as she clutched her teacup. "All my life," she whispered, "I've tried to be good enough. For my parents, my husband, my children, my church. I followed every rule, checked every box, but this emptiness inside, it never goes away. What am I doing wrong?" What Margaret couldn't see, what most people never realize, is that her spiritual evolution wasn't being blocked by what she hadn't done, but by what she refused to release. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus tells the rich young ruler, "If you want to be perfect, go, sell your possessions, and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come, follow me." Biblical scholars have debated this passage for centuries, treating it as a metaphor about charity. But the deeper esoteric truth is far more profound. Spiritual ascension requires releasing your attachments, not just to material things, but to the internal weights you've carried for decades. The anchors holding you in the old dimension aren't chains around your ankles. They're chains around your mind. The first anchor you must release is the comparison mindset, the lifelong habit of measuring your worth against others. How many hours have you wasted wondering why others seem to have it easier? Why their marriages appear happier, their children more successful, their bodies healthier, their finances more abundant? This comparison has never brought you peace. It never will. In 5D consciousness, there is no better than or worse than, only unique expressions of divine energy. The second anchor is people-pleasing, the exhausting pattern of contorting yourself to win approval. Think of how often you've silenced your intuition to avoid rocking the boat. How frequently you've said yes when your soul was screaming no. How many versions of yourself you've created to match what others needed you to be. This shape-shifting has drained your spiritual battery for decades. In the new dimension awaiting you, authenticity isn't just encouraged, it's required. The third anchor, perhaps the heaviest of all, is attachment to outcomes. The desperate need to control exactly how your life unfolds. The anxiety when things don't go according to your plan. The sleepless nights plotting and strategizing, as if the universe might forget you without your constant management. This grasping has caused you immeasurable suffering. In 5D reality, divine flow replaces rigid control, and synchronicity replaces struggle. Margaret called me recently, her voice transformed. "I started letting go of what I thought I was supposed to be," she said. "First small things, opinions I didn't really believe, responsibilities that weren't actually mine. Then bigger things, relationships that drained me, the perfect image I maintained at church. It felt terrifying, like stepping off a cliff, but instead of falling, I'm expanding for the first time. In my life, I can breathe." The fourth anchor is perhaps the most insidious, the victim stories you've carried, some since childhood, that have become part of your identity. The narrative that you were abandoned, betrayed, overlooked, undervalued. Betrayed, overlooked, undervalued. These stories may be based on genuine wounds, but they've hardened from experiences into identities. They've given you a coherent explanation for your pain, but at the cost of your power. I must be completely honest with you. This release won't be comfortable. When you've carried these weights for 50, 60, 70 years, they become familiar. They feel like home, like safety. The prospect of letting them go can trigger profound fear, not of failure, but of freedom. In the book of Exodus, after Moses leads the Israelites out of slavery, something remarkable happens. They begin complaining, longing to return to Egypt, to return to their bondage. This wasn't just historical narrative. It was profound psychological insight. Humans often prefer familiar suffering to unfamiliar freedom, but you cannot bring these anchors with you through the dimensional gateway that's opening. The energetic physics simply don't allow it. Just as you cannot bring a submarine to the mountaintop, you cannot carry 3D consciousness into 5D reality. This isn't about judgment, it's about liberation. Every weight you release creates space for the divine abundance that's your birthright. Every anchor you surrender allows your soul to rise to its natural state of buoyancy. The most profound truth, the one that has transformed thousands of chosen ones I've worked with, is this. What you perceive as loss is actually recovery. In releasing these anchors, you aren't becoming less. You aren't becoming less. You're becoming more of who you truly are. You're not losing your identity. You're remembering it. If you're sensing a lightening within you, if something in these words is causing the anchors to already begin releasing, type the number 1 in the comments below. This signal to your conscious and subconscious mind solidifies your intention to travel light into your new reality. The divine is not asking you to become someone new. It's inviting you to release who you never were, so the authentic you can finally emerge. The question is no longer whether you're worthy of ascension. The question is, are you willing to let go? Part 6, the restoration of your divine blueprint. Have you ever wondered why certain health issues persist no matter what treatments you try? Why some relationship patterns repeat despite your best efforts to change them? Why financial struggles follow you even when you've done everything right according to conventional wisdom? What if these aren't random challenges, but symptoms of a deeper misalignment with your original divine design? Last year, I met David, a 72-year-old retired executive who had achieved everything society told him meant success. The prestigious career, the beautiful home, the investment portfolio. Yet he sat before me, his hands slightly trembling, and confessed, "I've spent my entire life building what I thought was security. Now I'm wondering if I constructed the wrong life entirely. Is it too late for me?" What David couldn't see, what most people never realize, is that beneath the accumulated layers of societal programming lies a perfect template of who you were created to be, your divine blueprint. In Genesis, it's written that humanity was created in the image and likeness of God. Biblical scholars have debated this passage for centuries, treating it as abstract theology. But the profound esoteric truth is that this wasn't mere poetic language. It was describing the encoding of divine perfection within your very DNA. Before the limitations of this world were programmed into you, before you were told you weren't enough, before you learned to fear lack, before you internalized unworthiness, you existed in perfect harmony with your Creator. That perfection, that divine design, is being reactivated within you right now, cell by cell, thought by thought, emotion by emotion. The chronic pain that doctors can't explain. It's not random. It's the physical manifestation of where your current life has deviated from your divine blueprint. The recurring financial struggles. They're signaling misalignment with your soul's true abundance. The relationship patterns that leave you feeling drained and unseen. They're showing you where you've accepted less than what your divine design intended. David called me 3 months after our first meeting. His voice was different, stronger, more vibrant. "Something extraordinary is happening," he said. "I started following your guidance about reconnecting with my divine blueprint. First, this persistent shoulder pain I've had for decades simply vanished. Then I found myself naturally letting go of relationships that drained me. Now money is flowing from unexpected sources. What is happening to me? What's happening to David? What's beginning to happen within you is the restoration of divine order, the recalibration of your entire being to its original specifications. This isn't just spiritual terminology. Quantum physicists have proven that human DNA emits photons, literally light. When this light is coherent and in proper frequency, your cells function optimally. When it's disrupted, disease manifests. What science is just beginning to measure Ancient wisdom has always known. Your physical body is literally crystallized light patterned after a divine template. Here's what mainstream medicine won't tell you. The restoration of your divine blueprint isn't just affecting your spirit. It's recoding your physical reality at the subatomic level. The health struggles you've experienced, they're being rewired. The financial limitations, being dissolved. The relationship patterns, being realigned with your true divine nature. I must be completely honest with you. This restoration isn't always comfortable. As your cells reorganize to their divine pattern, you may experience temporary intensifications. What healing practitioners call a healing practitioners call a healing practitioners call a healing crisis. Old emotions may surface. Physical symptoms may briefly worsen. Relationships may reach breaking points. These aren't signs something's wrong. They're confirmation that the restoration is working. In Revelation, John describes the New Jerusalem as a perfect cube made of pure crystalline materials. This wasn't just apocalyptic symbolism. It was describing the crystalline structure of fully activated human consciousness. The same crystalline activation now occurring within your cells. The most remarkable aspect of this restoration is how comprehensive it is. It's not just your body being healed, it's your entire life aligning with your soul's true design. Opportunities appear that perfectly match your authentic gifts. Relationships form with those who recognize and honor your true essence. Resources flow in divine timing to support your highest purpose. If you've spent decades feeling like your efforts at improvement lead to only incremental changes, it's because you've been trying to fix individual problems instead of restoring the divine template that automatically corrects all imbalances simultaneously. The divine blueprint restoration occurs at a level deeper than your conscious mind can access. But your soul recognizes what's happening. That's why tears may come to your eyes as you hear these words. That's why you may feel waves of emotion moving through your body right now. Your soul is saying, yes, this is the truth I've always known. The wisdom your generation has accumulated through decades of life experience makes you perfectly positioned for this restoration. Unlike younger souls who haven't yet learned the limitations of material solutions, you've gained the perspective to recognize that true transformation must occur at the level of consciousness. If what I'm sharing resonates with the deepest part of your being, if you sense the truth beyond intellectual understanding, type the number 3 in the comments below. This simple act signals to both your conscious and subconscious mind your willingness to allow this divine restoration to accelerate. Your divine blueprint was never lost. It was only temporarily obscured. Now, as the veils thin and higher frequencies flood your being, what was always perfect within you is being revealed. The question is no longer whether restoration is possible. The question is, will you allow what's already happening to complete itself without resistance? Your soul already knows the answer. Part 7. The divine community awaiting you. Have you ever walked into a room full of people and felt utterly alone? Have you found yourself surrounded by family, friends, or colleagues, yet experiencing a profound isolation that no one seems to understand? No one seems to understand. What if that soul, deep loneliness, wasn't a defect in your character, but a divine preparation for the most authentic connections you'll ever experience? 6 months ago, I met Catherine, a 64-year-old retired teacher who had devoted her life to others. She'd raised children, nurtured students, volunteered in her community, always the caretaker, always the supportive one. Yet sitting across from me, her eyes revealed a private desolation as she whispered, "I've spent my entire life connecting with people, but I've never felt truly seen. Is there something wrong with me?" What Catherine couldn't recognize, what most chosen ones fail to understand, is that her lifelong sense of disconnection wasn't a failure. It was preparation. In the book of John, Jesus tells his disciples, "You are not of this world, just as I am not of this world." Biblical scholars often interpret this metaphorically, but the deeper esoteric truth is that chosen souls carry a frequency fundamentally different from the dominant consciousness of this planet. This difference creates an inevitable sense of isolation, not because you're flawed, but because you're vibrating at a higher frequency than those around you. This isolation has been painful, sometimes unbearably so, but it served a critical purpose, creating the sacred emptiness necessary for your true soul connections to enter. As you step into fifth dimensional consciousness, something remarkable happens to your relationships. The superficial connections that dominated the old world, based on proximity, convenience, shared history, or social obligation, dissolve. In their place emerges a profound soul recognition that transcends all ordinary boundaries. Catherine called me recently, her voice vibrant with newfound joy. "The strangest thing has been happening," she said. "People I've never met before are approaching me in cafes, in parks, even in grocery store aisles. They start conversations that instantly go deep, as if we've known each other forever. Last week, a woman sat next to me on a bench and within minutes said, 'I feel like I've been waiting to meet you my whole life. What's happening to me? What's happening to Catherine? What will soon happen to you?' Is the activation of soul family reunions that have been planned across lifetimes. Unlike the conditional relationships of the old paradigm, these divine connections operate on profound soul recognition. You'll experience communication beyond words, support without judgment, and love without judgment, and love without conditions. The exhausting performance of trying to fit in, to be accepted, to contort yourself into acceptability, all of it falls away in the presence of those who recognize your true essence. Many of you have experienced devastating disappointments in relationships. Betrayals by those you trusted, rejection by those you loved, abandonment by those who promised to stay. These wounds weren't random cruelties. They were necessary completions of karmic contracts, freeing you from attachments that would have prevented your ascension. The spiritual physics of this transformation follows an immutable law. Nature abhors a vacuum. The relationships that have fallen away, sometimes painfully, sometimes mysteriously, created space for what's now magnetizing toward you. In Ecclesiastes, it's written, "Two are better than one. For if they fall, one will lift up his companion. But woe to him who is alone when he falls, for he has no one to help him up." This wasn't just practical advice. It was divine recognition that spiritual evolution requires community, not the superficial communities built on shared beliefs or backgrounds, but soul clusters reuniting to support each other's ascension. The loneliness you've experienced, especially intense for those in midlife and beyond, wasn't a punishment. It was cosmic creation making space for your true soul community. Like a master sculptor removing excess stone to reveal the masterpiece within, the divine has been carving away what doesn't belong in your new reality. These connections won't need to be sought. They'll magnetize to you naturally as your frequency rises, creating a support system precisely calibrated for the next phase of your journey. Some will be new souls you've never met before. Others might be people already in your life whose consciousness is simultaneously elevating. Still others might be reconnections with those separated from you by time or circumstance, now drawn back by divine timing. Here's what mainstream spirituality won't tell you. The ascension process was never meant to be walked alone. The image of the solitary mystic on the mountaintop is an incomplete picture. True spiritual evolution happens in conscious community, souls reflecting each other's light, amplifying each other's gifts, supporting each other's gifts, supporting each other through the birthing pains of a new consciousness. If you've spent decades feeling unseen, unheard, or misunderstood by those closest to you, know this. The very isolation that has caused you such pain has been creating the perfect void for your soul family to fill. If you're sensing a resonance with these words, if something deep within you recognizes the truth I'm sharing, type the number 4 in the comments below. This simple act signals to both your conscious and subconscious mind your readiness to receive these divine connections. The loneliness you've carried wasn't your final destination. It was merely the necessary emptying preparing you for authentic soul communion. Your people are coming. In fact, they're already here, awakening to their own divine nature, feeling the same pull toward you that you feel toward them. The question is no longer if you'll find your tribe, but whether you'll recognize them when they appear. Part 8. Your divine assignment revealed. Have you ever felt a gnawing emptiness in your career, even after achieving what society considers success? Do you sometimes wake with a strange urgency, a feeling that there's something specific you're meant to be doing, even if you can't quite name it? What if that persistent sense of unrealized purpose isn't your imagination, but your soul's recognition of a divine assignment you've carried across lifetimes? 8 years ago, I met William, a 70-year-old former corporate executive. He had climbed every ladder, exceeded every goal, accumulated wealth and recognition. Yet sitting in my office, his eyes revealed a profound emptiness. "I've done everything I was supposed to do," he said, his voice barely audible. "Built the career, provided for my family, saved for retirement. But now I keep having this recurring dream where someone hands me a sealed envelope and says, 'This is what you really came here to do.' I wake up feeling I failed at the one thing that actually mattered. Is it too late for me?" What William couldn't see, what most people never realize, is that the career dissatisfaction many experience in midlife isn't failure. It's divine dissatisfaction, creating the necessary discomfort to redirect you toward your true purpose. In the parable of the talents in Matthew 25, Jesus tells of servants entrusted with their master's wealth. The deeper esoteric meaning beneath this teaching isn't about money. It's about how each soul is entrusted with specific divine gifts, meant to be activated at the perfect moment in their life journey. For many chosen ones, that moment arrives not in youth, but in the seasoned wisdom of middle and later life. Each chosen one carries a unique divine assignment, a soul mission that only you can fulfill. Some of you will become healers, awakening others through your touch, your words, or your mere presence. The mysterious health challenges you've navigated weren't random afflictions. They were initiations, teaching you to understand suffering so you could alleviate it in others. Others among you will become wisdom keepers, preserving essential spiritual knowledge for future generations. Those endless hours you've spent reading, questioning, seeking understanding, they weren't mere curiosity. They were preparation for your role as a living library of spiritual truth during this critical transition. Some will become bridge builders, creating connections between different worlds and perspectives. The painful experiences of being misunderstood, of never quite fitting in. These weren't social failures. They were training for your ability to translate between dimensions, between paradigms, between souls who would otherwise remain separated. Others will become creators, birthing new systems, art forms, or technologies that elevate human consciousness. The unconventional thinking that made you feel like an outsider was actually your soul's refusal to be constrained by outdated paradigms that you came here to help transform. William called me 6 months after our meeting, his voice transformed. I started volunteering at a homeless shelter, just reading to the elderly residents, he said. Something extraordinary happened. As I read, I began instinctively changing the stories, speaking directly to their deepest wounds. People started lining up for story time with Bill. A woman who hadn't spoken in years started talking again. A man with terminal cancer said he finally felt peace. I've never felt so alive. Is this what was in that envelope in my dreams? Yes, William. That's exactly what was in the envelope. Your divine assignment isn't random. It's perfectly aligned with the gifts you've spent decades developing, often through challenges that forced these abilities to emerge. The career path that may have felt unfulfilling wasn't wasted time. It was necessary training, developing skills you'll now apply in entirely different ways. Here's what conventional career counselors won't tell you. For the chosen ones, true purpose often emerges not through careful planning, but through divine disruption, the job loss that seemed catastrophic, the health crisis that forced you to slow down, the relationship ending that removed you from a certain environment. These weren't failures. They were cosmic course corrections. They were cosmic course corrections. I must tell you something that might be difficult to hear. The window for activating your divine assignment is now open, but it won't remain open indefinitely. The accelerating planetary transformation needs your specific gifts activated at this precise moment in cosmic time. In the Book of Esther, Mordecai tells the reluctant queen, "Who knows if perhaps you were made queen for just such a time as this?" This wasn't just historical narrative. It was prophetic recognition that certain souls incarnate with specific purposes, aligned to critical moments in human evolution. This is your moment. This is why you're here. If you're sensing a quickening within you, if something in these words is activating a dormant knowing about your specific divine role, type the number 6 in the comments below. This simple act signals to both your conscious and subconscious mind your willingness to step fully into your divine assignment. The life experience you've accumulated hasn't been wasted. The wisdom you've gained through decades of trial and error wasn't for nothing. It was all preparation for this exact moment when your accumulated wisdom would be most needed by a world in transformation. The question is no longer whether you have a divine assignment. The question is, will you accept it? Conclusion. The divine invitation. Beloved chosen one, as our journey together comes to a close, I want you to take a moment to reflect on everything we've uncovered. The divine markers you've carried your entire life, the 5 quantum leap that awaits you, the anchors you must release, the restoration of your divine blueprint, the soul family searching for you, the unique assignment with your name on it. These aren't metaphors or spiritual platitudes. They are the sacred truths of your existence, the reality of who you truly are and why you're here at this pivotal moment in human history. Remember this, you were never random. Your struggles were never punishment. Your differences were never defects. Every challenge, every heartbreak, every moment of isolation was preparation for this cosmic awakening. You are not alone in this transformation. The Creator who designed your divine blueprint is actively working in your life right now, orchestrating circumstances, relationships, and synchronicities to guide you home. And beyond the veil, a community of fellow chosen ones awaits you. Souls who recognize your light, who speak your spiritual language, who understand your divine assignment without explanation. I invite you to pause right now and ask yourself this question. What if everything I've been through, every trial, every disappointment, every inexplicable longing, was perfectly designed to prepare me for a purpose greater than I could have imagined? Let us pray together. Divine Creator, I come before you, acknowledging your perfect plan for each soul listening to these words. I ask that you place your hand of blessing upon them right now, wherever they are. Remove the veils that have hidden their true identity. Dissolve the fears that have kept them small. Heal the wounds that have distorted their self-perception. Lord, I pray you would illuminate their divine assignment with such clarity that all confusion dissipates. Connect them with the soul family members who will support their awakening. Give them courage to release what no longer serves their highest evolution. Most of all, I ask that you confirm these truths in ways so personal, so undeniable, that all doubt is removed. Let signs and wonders follow them. Let divine synchronicities surround them. Let dreams and visions guide them. I declare that from this moment forward, they walk in the full authority of their divine purpose. No more delay, no more hindrance, no more confusion. The time is now. The chosen ones are awakening. Your divine plan is unfolding. In the name above all names, Amen. If this message has awakened something deep within you, please take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments below. What resonated most deeply? What questions remain? What divine markers have you recognized in your own life? And if you know someone else who might be a chosen one, someone who has always felt different, who has struggled to fit in, who senses there's more to life than what they've experienced, please share this message with them. You may be the divine messenger they've been waiting for. Thank you for staying until the end of this revelation. This wasn't coincidence. It was divine appointment. By subscribing to this channel, you'll remain connected to ongoing guidance as we navigate this awakening together. Each week, we'll explore another aspect of your divine identity and purpose. Remember, the fact that you're still listening confirms what your soul has always known. You are chosen. You are called. You are ready. The divine invitation has been extended. How will you respond?